Hello and thanks for tuning into my YouTube channel, Behind the Lyrics. In this episode, nothing about lyrics, but everything about how bands from the 1960s got their names. There's some really cool, interesting stories, so let's get started. Buffalo Springfield. The 5 members of Buffalo Springfield were Stephen Stills, Neil Young, Richie Furay, Bruce Palmer, and Dewey Martin. As the newly formed group began rehearsing and preparing for their debut, they realized they needed a name that would set them apart in a burgeoning music scene. One day, while walking through Los Angeles, the band members came across a piece of heavy machinery parked by the side of the road. The machinery was manufactured by the Buffalo Springfield Roller Company, a well-known producer of steamrollers and other construction equipment. The band members found it intriguing and memorable, so they chose the name Buffalo Springfield. Cream. The band was considered one of the first supergroups with 3 extraordinary musicians: Eric Clapton, Jack Bruce, and Ginger Baker. The name Cream emerged from the idea that these musicians were the cream of the crop in the music industry. It was a bold, self-assured statement that reflected their confidence in their abilities. Clapton, Bruce, and Baker were at the pinnacle of their fields, and the name was intended to signify their elite status as artists. Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. The band was originally formed in 1964 in Los Angeles under the name the Soul Giants. After deciding to stop doing covers and only play their original music, they chose the name the Mothers. Well, mother is something short for a second word that starts with F. So their record label, Verb, deemed the Mothers too provocative and potentially offensive for a commercial audience. So the band added of invention to their moniker, resulting in the name the Mothers of Invention. Zappa says it references the proverb, necessity is the mother of invention. Humble Pie. The band, formed in 1969, included members Peter Frampton, formerly of The Herd, Steve Marriott, formerly of Small Faces, Greg Ridley, formerly of Spooky Tooth, and Jerry Shirley. The band chose the name because they were being referred to as a supergroup by the music press, and they wanted to downplay expectations, so they chose the name Humble Pie. Iron Butterfly. The band is known for its 1968 album In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida with its groundbreaking 17-minute title track. The original name of the band was The Progressives. They were scheduled to play a show with 2 other bands, Friendly Stranger and Iron Butterfly. When Iron Butterfly failed to show up, which led to the band breaking up, the members of The Progressives liked the name, so they simply stole it. Lovin' Spoonful. The name Lovin' Spoonful originates from a lyric in a song by blues legend Mississippi John Hurt. In his 1928 song, Coffee Blues, Hurt sings about his love for Maxwell House coffee. The lyrics include this line: "Well, please, ma'am, just a lovin' spoon, just a lovin' spoonful. I declare, I gotta have my lovin' spoonful." Moby Grape. The band decided on the name Moby Grape after hearing this joke: what's big and purple and lives in the ocean? The answer, Moby Grape. Mott the Hoople. Before changing their name to Mott the Hoople, the name of the band was Silence. The name was taken from the title of a 1966 book by British author Willard Manus titled Mott the Hoople. In the book, the main character, Norman Mott, thinks of himself as a hoople, a word Manus himself borrowed from a newspaper comic strip called Our Boarding House. The term means fool, buffoon, and sucker. Paul Revere and the Raiders. The band originally formed in 1957 in Boise, Idaho, under the name the Downbeats. In 1961, they changed their name to Paul Revere and the Raiders as their music began to take off. The name was largely the brainchild of their keyboardist and leader, Paul Revere Dick. He decided to adopt a historical reference, giving the band an identity that was both distinctive and dramatic. To do so, he simply dropped his last name, and the band added the Raiders. Procol Harum. The English rock band formed in 1967 is best known for their single, A Whiter Shade of Pale. Originally known as the Paramounts, the band's soon-to-be new name was inspired by a cat. According to the story, the band's guitarist Gary Brooker had a pet cat named Procol Harum. The cat was a pedigreed Siamese, and Brooker named it after a friend's cat. A slight alteration was made to the original name, changing it to Procol Harum. Question Mark and the Mysterians. The name Question Mark and the Mysterians is deeply rooted in science fiction and the personality of its frontman, who officially goes by the moniker Question Mark. Born Rudy Martinez, the lead singer adopted the alias Question Mark to cultivate an air of mystery around himself and the band. The band got the name Mysterians from the 1957 Japanese science fiction film, The Mysterians. The film tells the story of an alien race called the Mysterians who attempt to take over Earth. Quicksilver Messenger Service. The band got its name from members' astrological signs. Band members David Freeberg and Jim Murray were Virgos. Another member was a Gemini. Virgos and Geminis are both ruled by the planet Mercury. Quicksilver is another name for Mercury. So the band came up with Quicksilver Messenger Service. Rare Earth. The band chose the name after flirting with a number of different names. During their early years in Detroit, Michigan, the band performed under the name The Sunliners. The band was the first band to sign to a new Motown label that was dedicated to white rock acts. The record company didn't have a name for the new label yet, and the band jokingly suggested Motown call the label Rare Earth. To the band's surprise, Motown decided to do just that, and the band took the name as well. Righteous Brothers. The band got their name from a comment made by a Marine in the audience during one of their performances. Bill Medley and Bobby Hatfield's style of singing and soulful delivery often earned praise. At the end of one show, a Marine shouted, "That was Righteous Brothers." Bill and Bobby loved what he said, so they chose the name Righteous Brothers. The Beach Boys. Initially, the band performed under the name the Pendletones. Pendletones is a reference to Pendleton wool shirts, which were popular attire among surfers at the time. When the group's first single, Surfin', was recorded in October 1961, the record label's producers and promoters decided that the Pendletones did not capture the sunny, surf-inspired sound of the group. Instead, they chose the name The Beach Boys. The new name not only emphasized the band's coastal California roots, but also resonated with the burgeoning surf music genre. The Beatles. The Beatles is a clever play on words that evolved over time through several iterations. The group started in 1957, led by John Lennon, and it referenced his school, Quarry Bank High School. The Beatles, Beetles. In 1960, they briefly used this name as a nod to Buddy Holly and the Crickets, one of their key influences. The Beatles, Beatles. Around the same time, they experimented with this spelling to emphasize the beat in their music. The Silver Beatles. They adopted this name during their early career, particularly while touring Scotland as a backing band for singer Johnny Gentle. And finally, the Beatles. By mid-1960, the group settled on this final version. The name is credited to John Lennon, though it's often said that Stuart Sutcliffe, the band's bassist at the time, also had input. The Byrds. The Byrds chose their name as a tribute to the Beatles. The Byrds were inspired by the Beatles' success and influence. The band, originally called the Jet Set and later briefly the Beef Eaters, wanted a name that reflected their connection to the British invasion, but also had a distinctive American twist. They decided on the Byrds, deliberately misspelling the word birds to emulate the creative spelling of the Beatles. The Doors. The Doors took their name from Aldous Huxley's 1954 book, The Doors of Perception. The book was inspired by a quote from the poet William Blake. Blake wrote in the poem, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. The Faces. The band The Faces got their name as a natural progression from their previous name, The Small Faces. When Steve Marriott, their original lead singer, left the band, the remaining members, Ronnie Lane, Kenny Jones, and Ian McLaughlin, were joined by Rod Stewart and Ronnie Wood. The band dropped the word small from their name and simply became The Faces. The Flying Burrito Brothers. The band stole their name from another Los Angeles band who they used to jam with. The original Flying Burrito Brothers were made up of Ian Dunlop and Mickey Govan, who were bandmates of Graham Parsons in the International Submarine Band. When Parsons joined other musicians to form a new band, they simply stole the name. The Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead got their name from a chance encounter with a dictionary. According to band legend, they were searching for a new name after discovering their previous one, the Warlocks, was already in use by another group. While brainstorming, Jerry Garcia opened the dictionary and found the term Grateful Dead, which refers to a motif in folklore. The Grateful Dead story typically involves a wandering soul or spirit showing gratitude to someone who helps them achieve peace or proper burial. The Monkees. In his 1987 memoir, They Made a Monkey Out of Me, Davy Jones recalls how the band got its name. The name hadn't been thought of yet, he said. There was the Beatles, the Animals, the Birds, the Turtles, so we started thinking of animal names. Somebody came up with the Parrots. Said Jones, "Can you imagine? Hey, hey, we're the Parrots? No way." But when someone made the suggestion that a monkey could be the group mascot, a light bulb went off. Suddenly, we knew we had it. Just like the Beatles changed the spelling of Beatles and the Birds changed the spelling of birds, we change the spelling of monkeys to M-O-N-K-E-E-S. The Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones got their name from a song by blues legend Muddy Waters. When the band was forming in 1962, founding member Brian Jones was on the phone with Jazz News magazine to promote their first gig. He was asked the name of the band, but they didn't have one yet. Thinking quickly, Jones spotted Muddy Waters' 1950 song, Rollin' Stone, on a record and said, "Just call us the Rolling Stones." The Velvet Underground. The band's co-founder, John Cale, came across the title The Velvet Underground while reading a book about the secret sexual subculture of the 1960s and the phrase Velvet Underground, which referred to the idea of a hidden or secret world beneath society's surface. The Who. The band was originally known as the Detours. According to legend, Pete Townsend and his housemate Richard Barnes spent a night pondering name options, focusing on a theme of joke announcements. Options included No One and The Group. Townsend reportedly liked the name The Hair, and Barnes liked The Who because it had a pop punch. The next morning, Daltrey chose The Who. The Zombies. The name was suggested by band member Paul Arnold. The band was originally formed in 1961 under the name The Mustangs, but they discovered another band had that name. The name The Zombies was inspired by the rising popularity of horror and science fiction films at the time, particularly those featuring zombies, undead creatures that were often depicted as mindless, reanimated beings. Them. The band got their name quite simply and spontaneously. Formed in 1964 in Belfast, North Ireland, the group was originally named The Gamblers. They changed the name to Them after the 1954 sci-fi horror film with the same name. Uriah Heep. The band Uriah Heep got their name from a character in Charles Dickens' novel David Copperfield. Uriah Heep is a scheming, self-serving character in the novel, often portrayed as the epitome of insincerity and hypocrisy. So there you have it, how some of the greatest rock bands from the 1960s got their names. Just a little music trivia for you. I really hope you learned something from watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed watching it as well. If you did, I hope you take the time to like it, subscribe to my channel, and click the notification bell so you'll be notified when I post a new video. That's it from Behind the Lyrics, and as always, keep listening to the music and rock on.